Hey guys, Eddie here. It's Thursday night. Impact starts in, I think, about 10 minutes. I got Wipeout on the TV right now. And tonight, TNA brought Roxy back to take part in this Madison Rain Open Challenge angle that they've been doing for the last few weeks. And I'm actually really looking forward to this for a change for two reasons. Number one, Roxy is my favorite knockout of all time. So it'll be nice to see her back on TV again, if only for one night. And number two, the last time Madison Rain had a singles match that I would call good, it was with Roxy at Slammiversary last year. So, to date, Roxy is the last woman in this company that's been able to carry Madison Rain, our Knockouts champion, to a watchable singles match. So, can Roxy make magic happen again? Can she make lightning strike twice? Will we finally see a decent singles match from our Knockouts champion? Let's find out. Hi, everybody. Sorry about the weird way the video ended last week. You don't really know what was going on there. I think I had some kind of mini psychotic episode or something. But anyway, I'm better now, so let's do this. They start the show with Sting, predictably. They have this whole video package where he says that TNA is his brand, and then he comes out and he says that he left because he didn't want to put up with Hogan and Bischoff again. Yeah, join the club, Sting. But he never left the fans. No, he never left the fans. And now he's back because he loves TNA, and he's gonna put an end to their reign of tyranny, I guess. And it's nice of him to say that stuff and all, but you know what? Let's see him act like it. Let's see you act like you love TNA, Steve. Let's see you perform like you still want to be there. Because I don't see that. I don't see it. And that's my biggest problem with Sting. I don't believe him anymore when he says he wants to be there, because it's pretty clear that he really doesn't. Every year we hear the same story. Sting just doesn't know if he wants to re-sign, but then Dixie ponies up the cash and manages to convince him. Does that sound like a guy who really cares about what he's doing? If he has to be convinced to re-sign? If he really wants to come back, that's one thing. But if you have to jump through all these hoops to get him, there's something wrong with that. And frankly, that's a deal breaker for me. If I feel like the guy doesn't care about what he's doing anymore, then I don't care to watch him anymore. I only want to watch the people who still have a passion for this, and I haven't seen that from Sting for the last year and a half. And yeah, I know he was injured for a lot of 2010, so maybe not all the blame can be put on him. But really, half of this is on Sting, and half of it is on TNA. If he doesn't care enough to perform well, or if he's too injured to perform well, then he really shouldn't be in this spot. And as for that stuff he said, his comments just don't ring true. They don't. I'm sorry. He supposedly loves TNA, but he hasn't acted like it in or out of kayfabe. He could have easily stopped Hogan and Bischoff from stealing the company any number of times, and he didn't. Yeah, that was mostly due to really bad contrived writing by the creative team, but the fact remains he could have stopped it, and he chose not to. Instead, he just let it happen. And then when Dixie was begging for him to stay and help her, he just took his ball and went home. Because he didn't care. I love that they called him out on that, by the way. And now we're all just supposed to believe him when he says otherwise? Bullshit. If Sting cared so much about the company, then where the hell has he been for the last 5 months while Immortal's been running roughshod over everything? I mean, we're all supposed to embrace him again because he descends from his ivory tower and rides back to TNA on his white horse so he can be seen as TNA's savior, as the hero who rescued TNA from Hogan and Bischoff when it was pretty much because of him that they were able to take over the company in the first place? Sorry, Sting, but you can't just erase the last year and a half from everyone's memory. You didn't stop the takeover when you had every chance in the world to do it, and afterward you went home because you didn't care enough to stick around and clean up the mess that you created. Period. And there's some idiots out there that have been trying to make the argument that it was worth bringing Sting back and putting the world title on him again because that segment drew big ratings. And it did get big ratings. I'll cop to that. As I understand it, it was like the highest rated Impact in over a year. Congratulations. But just because this stunt popped a rating temporarily, some short-sighted morons think this was the right call. Here's why this is not true. The Sting title win got ratings because it was milking nostalgia pops from fans who can't let go of their childhood. Are those nostalgia pops going to last a month from now? 2 months from now? 6 months from now? What does a 52-year-old Sting dethroning Jeff Hardy and doing what all the young talent couldn't do for your future? It doesn't do anything. In fact, it hurts your future by making all the young talent look inferior to this guy. And that's going to become a big damn problem 5 years from now when Sting is finally retired for real and all that young talent that was never built up properly because they were completely neglected in favor of guys like Sting have to carry the company. Anyway, this was a better show than last week. Still way too chaotic with way too much crap going on, but they were a little more fair in how they doled out screen time. After last week's show, where Jeff and Karen Jarrett had the entire damn universe revolving around them, the Jarretts were confined to one backstage pre-tape. Rob Terry and Scott Steiner were nowhere to be seen. Also, the backstage stuff was de-emphasized and they spent more time actually in the arena this week. Thank you. These things made for a better show, but they still fell into the same traps they always do. Too many things happening all at once and virtually no attention to detail. For example, there's this video where AJ says that he's not standing in anyone's shadow for one more second. Really? Really, AJ? Well then why are you wasting time feuding with a career mid-carder like Matt Hardy while the guy who passed the torch to you at Bound for Glory a year and a half ago waltzes back into the company after 5 months at home and gets the world title handed to him? Isn't that the very thing that Fortune said they weren't going to put up with anymore just a few weeks ago? Remember that whole promo about the overpaid, overpriced veterans who they got pushed aside for? About all the washed-up has-beens who came and left? Well, one of those very same has-beens they were talking about just won the world title, and all of a sudden Fortune are cool with this? Shouldn't they be pissed off? I'm not saying Fortune should go full-blown heel on Sting, but I don't think a little character consistency here is too much to ask for. But at least AJ is doing something in keeping with Fortune's original mission statement. He's feuding with Matt Hardy and, by extension, Ric Flair. He should be above this by now, but at least it's something. But astonishingly, Beer Money seem to have gotten de-pushed ever since they won the tag titles. And I think these last few months have really taught us to appreciate what awesome tag team champions the Motor City Machine Guns were. When they had the belts and the division was revolving around them and they were having fantastic matches with everybody every single week, tag team wrestling was on fire in this company. It was the most exciting thing about the show. Now it's boring. And it's not Beer Money's fault, the writers just haven't given them any compelling feuds. They sat out on commentary here and spent the whole match saying how great Ink are and how they deserve everything they get. It was a last-minute thing to try to give these guys some credibility because 2 weeks ago they were sitting on the bench and they haven't been built up as real contenders whatsoever. And after Beer Money were singing their praises so much, if Inc. do not turn heel at the pay-per-view, I will be astounded because they telegraphed the hell out of that. So Inc. win the match, and unfortunately they had to beat Generation Me, who really should not have been put in that spot because they're going to be in an Ultimate X match for the X Division title at the pay-per-view. Most of you probably don't know about this because TNA did virtually nothing to hype it. It's 4 guys, Max and Jeremy, who have not been on TV for a month prior to this and lost to Inc. here. Robbie E., who on this show got punked out by Winter of all people, and the defending champ Kazarian, who didn't even appear on the show this week. So 2 of the challengers get jobbed out in a match that had nothing to do with the X Division. The other one is made to look like a total jobber by one of the knockouts. The champion is MIA. They air one little video package that's really just an old video package with a shot of Kazarian spliced in, and that's all the hype for Ultimate X that we get. That's it? You couldn't at least have Kaz cut a backstage promo or something? Weak. Look, we all know TNA threw Victory Road under the bus so they could focus on the Fayetteville impacts, but once you've done that, you can't save the show by adding an Ultimate X at the last minute, especially if you're going to downplay it so much and treat the guys in it like such an afterthought that most fans probably don't even know the match is happening. You're not going to get any new people to order the pay-per-view by booking the match like this. You know, when they're constantly delivering shows like this, I am just flabbergasted that Dixie has been so protective of this creative team for so long, because there are large chunks of the show that are being completely phoned in, and this was a perfect example. Another example is this Samoa Joe Pope feud. Is it my imagination, or does it seem like this feud has gone on for a really long time without actually accomplishing anything? I still have no idea why these guys are feuding. They haven't even told us why the Pope turned heel yet, and that happened months ago. The writers have completely failed in giving us a reason to care about this program, and honestly, I can't recall a time when I cared about either of these characters less than I do right now. That's the scary thing. By all rights, both these men should be in the main events, and this feud is just burying both of them, which is really baffling to me because conceivably a feud between them should work. But it's being booked all wrong. You've got Joe with his weird sidekick as the face and Pope as the heel. That's completely ass backwards. Pope works better as a face, and Joe should always be a heel. The worst thing TNA ever did to this guy is turn him face. Then there's the problem that they're not really feuding over anything. They're literally feuding for no reason. The whole rivalry is, I don't like you. I don't like you either. Let's fight. And on the basis of that alone, I think they're going to try to drag this thing out until Lockdown. I'm not trying to be an ass here, but a feud has to be about something. There has to be a reason why two people are fighting. I guarantee you this feud only came about because the writers couldn't think of anything to do with either of these guys, so they just decided to feud them with each other. You want another example? I got one. The Madison Rayne Open Challenge thing. This time they brought back Roxy for it. And you know what? My hat goes off to this woman. Roxy carried Madison Rayne to the last good singles match she had in this company at Slammiversary last year. And had this match gone longer than the 90 freaking seconds they gave it, I think this would have been a good match too. They were smart enough to let Roxy carry the action because she's a much better worker, and while it lasted, this was perfectly fine, I thought. The action was at a good pace, there were no slow spots, it wasn't necessarily the cleanest match ever, but for once the action was fast enough that I felt like there was actual effort being put in, and that's usually not the case with Madison Rayne matches. So, yeah, kudos to Roxy. The only reason I can't honestly call this a good match is because the writers fucked them over and gave them less than 2 minutes to work. But here's where the lack of attention to detail comes in, okay? You want to bring back Roxy to face Madison Rayne? Why in the world are you not talking about their history? You do remember that Roxy lost her job because of this woman, don't you? Don't you think that's something that you should mention? But no, the announcers are like, hey look, it's Roxy, we haven't seen her in a while. Yeah, that's because Madison Rayne got her fired last year, you idiots. God forbid you mention that and actually give this match some context. You see what I mean? The writers can't even bother with details like that. This is as basic as it gets, TNA. I should not have to point this stuff out. Then there was the Jersey Shore thing, and sure enough, it was horrible. At least it was over quick. I mean, this turned into a giant schmoz so fast you couldn't even call it a match. So, they did their latest publicity stunt, and I hope to God that's the last we see of it, because aside from the fact that it makes for really bad television and it's been a complete ratings disaster so far, if WWE's got Snooki on Raw, then you're just embarrassing yourselves parading Angelina around, and no one's going to care anymore either. Just makes your company look second-rate. They had a handicap street fight with AJ Styles versus Matt Hardy and Ric Flair. The match was as random as it gets. I don't think they mentioned it beforehand. I wasn't even sure it was a handicap match until about halfway through. I mean, it was probably the best wrestling match on the show, but it still seemed pretty inconsequential. But you know what? Who gives a crap? Look, did you know Victory Road is this Sunday? Because I didn't. I didn't even realize it until I saw this show. That's how half-assed the hype has been for this thing. Hell, when Bischoff was announcing the big matches in the opening segment, even he sounded bored. The Fayetteville Impacts just took priority over everything else. And yeah, it paid off in the ratings. It's just a shame that the shows didn't come off better than they did. 4 hours of television, and not a single match was over 7 minutes long, including Sting versus Hardy. I bet that live crowd was pissed off. The first real Impact on the road, and all they get is a bunch of backstage pre-tapes and 2-minute matches? Screw that. Anyway, that's it. Maybe I'll do a review for Victory Road if they make it worth my time. If not, I'll just touch on it in the Impact video next week. See you then. Later.